Another terrible day for the party in power. And Senate Minority Whip John Thune joins us now. Sir, good to have you on tonight. Obviously, we saw what happened today. It just seems to me this was a huge miscalculation on the part of the Democrats by holding this vote. What do you make of it?
It would appear that way, Rob. I mean, it's hard to explain why they would want to have a vote that they would lose. And really, you know, since they needed 60 votes, that's a requirement on this particular bill. They would lose badly. And they didn't even keep all Democrats. They lost Joe Manchin on this vote. So, I mean, but I think they are so desperate to demonstrate to their political base for whom this is an article of faith that they could pass or try to pass the most extreme abortion legislation in the history of the world. I mean, literally, this allows for abortions up to the point of birth. Basically, disallow people to use the conscience clause, providers, if they didn't want to perform abortions. It would allow for taxpayer financing of abortions. It would allow for gender selection. I mean, this is probably the most massive expansion on what, Roe versus Wade, which is what everybody talked about. We want to codify Roe versus Wade. This goes way beyond this. This is an enormous expansion of abortion rights in this country, and the Democrats all walked right down there, with the exception of Joe Manchin, and voted for it. It's really pretty stunning.
It is stunning. I mean, it really was, and I just think it was a massive miscalculation again, because it is so extreme to the point where they lose a Democrat, and I mean they put everybody on the record, and they end up looking worse. You made a point on the Senate floor today about the bill removing the right to invoke the Religious Freedom Act. Talk about why that's important, what that means.
Well, that's a piece of, that's been law in this country since the 1990s, 1993, and essentially allows people to, if something violates their conscience, their religious beliefs, to, make a decision not to participate. So in this case, as it applies to this particular issue, it would be a provider, a doctor or a nurse who would choose not to perform an abortion. And under their legislation, that would be waived. I mean, again, it's an incredible expansion that violates the conscience, the beliefs, the just core values of a huge number of Americans, a majority of Americans, I would argue, and a huge number of providers, healthcare providers in this country who would be affected by this. So if you're, for example, Rob, I think put it in terms people understand, Catholic hospital says, we're not going to do this. Well, under their provision in this particular piece of legislation, you would do away with that exemption. I mean, it just blows a huge hole in our entire belief system in this country.
And when you look at abortion in other places, I think, and I read a story about Italy, how it's very hard to find people to perform abortions because so many people object to it, and they're not forced to by law. If you object to it, you don't have to perform an abortion. So this, again, is just another example of just how insanely liberal this bill that they tried to push was. And if they really wanted to make a point, they would at least put something up there that was somewhat modest and moderate, but they didn't do that. And I think it was a really bad political miscalculation. I want to talk about inflation before we let you go. We got the number today. We saw the presser yesterday. You wondered why Biden was going to jump up and start talking about inflation. Well, it's because I think maybe they knew that they were going to get another dagger today. 8.3% April year over year. The Fed is operating under a delusion that they can raise interest rates and avoid a recession at the same time. But a former economist, Lawrence Summers, who worked under Clinton, he worked under Obama as well, had a tweet that I thought was so interesting at the bottom there. Federal Reserve needs to stop holding out the soft landing prospect and stress that it will do what is necessary to contain inflation, almost as if to say this inflation problem is so bad, there's no way that we can fix it while avoiding what's coming for this economy, which is going to be a significant slowdown. What are your thoughts?
Well, and I think he's touched on something that I think the Democrats administration are aware of, and that is that they've created a huge problem for themselves and for the country. The people who are paying the price for this are the American people. But their policies, the massive amount run up in spending, lack of an energy policy, so much of inflation, and you saw this today, gas prices hit a new high, again today, spiked. So much of inflation comes back to the cost of energy. It's baked into everything you buy. A pound of hamburger at the grocery store, it has to get there somehow. It takes energy to produce it. And I just think that these, the policy agenda of this administration is so counter when it comes to combating inflation that now they're trying to blame other people. You saw yesterday the president, it was always about somebody else, and well, the Fed's going to fix this. The Fed has limited tools at their disposal, and if they use them, they're going to be very painful for the American people.
Can I ask you one quick question about the China tariffs? We're looking at the possibility this White House is going to be removing those tariffs. I think you are in support of keeping them in place. What exactly is the story here? Why would they do something like this?
Well, I mean, I think right now there's, again, and maybe this ties into the inflation conversation we were just having, Rob. I think they're looking for any lever they can throw or anything that they think might do that might create additional supply in this country to keep up with demand to try and get inflation down. So my assumption is that they free up more trade from China, increases the supply of goods in America, maybe has a downward impact on inflation. Hard to say. But I think they're grasping at straws. I think the president yesterday was flailing. It seemed like he was just swinging blindly, trying to find something to hit, something that he could blame for a problem that he and his administration clearly created.
Right about that. Senator John Thune, sir, thank you for the time. Good to see you.
Thanks, Rob. See ya.